Okay. You have to edit all this out. I'll call to order the regular meeting. Can I have a?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I just wanted to. All right. Okay. So in celebrations, we'll do. Is that when we're going to? Or what have we done? We just moved the public comment to...
After all the communications.
Okay, all right, that sounds good. Okay, all right, so good. That notwithstanding, thank you, Christine. Yes, I apologize. You made a motion.
Second.
Excellent. All in favour?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. And I will entertain a motion to recess into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel and property.
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Dahl?
Yes.
Mr. Addison?
Yes.
Quinn?
Yes.
Mr. Khan?
Yes.
We are now recessed into executive session.
At this time, we will have celebrations for members of the Board of Education. Would anyone on the board like to share a celebration?
Yes. So we had an excellent turkey day, and I just love seeing the community come together. But I saw the retirement notice of Cliff Ice, and I just wanted to share a story that goes along with that. My daughter is a senior in the high school, and she had an idea that she wanted to raise money for the community closet. And she had to go take it to Cliff Ice to get an okay to do that. And when she did, he not only said yes to her, he also said, and I've also got a great idea that you could have a teacher being tied and it could be donated, it would be great. And in the end, they ended up raising over $600 in funds for the community closet that is used by approximately 18% of the high school community. So I was really, really happy about that. I also wanted to mention one of my neighbors, Shannon, she has been working with the city to lower the speed limit around Avery, and so that has been successful. She mentioned, and I don't know who the Webster Grove City Liaison is, but she mentioned that they haven't put signs up anywhere yet, nor have they talked about whether they were maybe move that to other schools as well. And so if anybody on here is the liaison or interested in seeing that at other elementary schools, they might want to connect with the city council.
So the makeshift signs, 30, 25, 20 is even better. Yes, I love those. Apparently those are now enacted into law.
And they don't work.
They don't work, yeah.
That's funny.
That's cool. Other celebrations?
So I actually got to go around. Now this was actually probably about a month ago now, because I don't think we did celebrations the last one because of snow, maybe.
Yeah, we had a quick meeting.
And so I went around the district with Dr. Simpson and got to see all the schools and got to talk to a lot of the students. And one of the things that I thought was really neat is talking to some of the fifth graders at Hudson who actually got to participate in a pitch at what's the name of the place?
The CIC.
CIC. Yep. And they actually did really well. They got they were awarded a grant, some money for their idea, and they were so excited. And just hearing them talk about it and what sparked their idea and what got them continuing to go. They showed us their website. I mean, it was wild to see how excited they were about it, and then talking to their teacher about all the different principles that they were using, science, business, so on and so forth. So I mean, fifth graders, it was pretty wild.
They have a team building company. So if you're ever looking for team builders.
Other celebrations, David?
So I just wanted to talk about Thanksgiving. I just wanted to mention Chili Fest. I wanted just to do a big thank you for everybody who had organized Chili Fest. Obviously, without all the parent volunteers, that doesn't come together. And then I also wanted just to publicly thank the sponsors of Chili Fest, and then also all of the restaurants who came out and donate the chili for us so that we can raise funds through Chili Fest. And every year we keep coming back, and it's the same. Many of the same restaurants who come back every year, and I'm always just very grateful when I see see all of those out there, and also all the amateur chilies as well, and just all the people who go and put in all of the time they do just to go and do that. And without that, what is one of my favorite things that over the Thanksgiving holiday, the Chili Fest, wouldn't happen. So thank you very much to everybody for that.
I would say, to piggyback on David and Christine, the pep rally I thought this year, I don't know who, I guess Molly Clark was coaching the cheerleaders. They were amazing. The dance team, the step team, our own Sandy Wiley.
She'd show us, she said she'd show us her moves.
I'm still waiting for that
Show us her moves tonight.
I feel like they get better every year. And I know that's a lot of hard work. And then I would also, Mr. Webster, which is awesome. One of my favorite events, was awesome this year, which I know is hard, I'm sure, without Kara Stevie in charge. But I thought the new marketing teacher did a great job. I had a shout out to Bennett Loving, the freshman diver who got third in state. He's amazing. And if you haven't seen him dive, you should go to swim meet wherever just to see it, because he is really, really good. It's impressive. And last but not least, I went to the Amen concert on Friday, which again was always good. And the Wash U a cappella people came. I don't know if anybody was there, but they are unbelievable. That's all I got.
All right, thank you.
I have one thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Feedback on Turkey Day, always great. About a week before Turkey Day, Hickson had a step exhibition. They had invited several step and dance teams from around the area. That was an awesome event. And I wish them luck. They are going to their first competition in Lexington, Kentucky this weekend. So
Wow.
let's please wish the Hickson Step team luck in their first endeavor at a competition.
That's great.
Really good.
All right, celebrations from our student advisor.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that with the football team and Turkey Day, and then with the soccer team going to the state tournament, it's been great to see all the kids from the high school as well as the middle school came out to all the events, and I'm sure some elementary school students. And it's been really great to see the community rally around our sports teams, and I think it was a lot of fun for everybody involved. So I think it was a good decision to let everybody go to the game, and it was a good way to rally the community around. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Administrators.
Kathy, do you have any?
Yeah, I have a couple. The Equip project from the high school's Thrive Incubator took first place this weekend at St. Louis U's Escalator Pitch Competition. And we currently have a donor who is willing to match all contributions to support needs-based scholarships for school travel opportunities through the Chelsea Center. Thanks to donations, high school students are now able to travel and learn in Italy, Greece, Germany, New York City, and Texas.
Thank you.
Cool, and some of mine have been already mentioned, but I just kind of wanted to echo. Again, Kathy mentioned the Equip project, and they won this weekend at the competition, pitch competition down at SLU, and our very own Jessica Peterson, Patrick's partner, as a board advisor last year, was the person chosen by the Equip project to participate in the elevator pitch. And these students, an individual student rode up an elevator, literally up an elevator with an executive, and had to pitch their business. And then they rode down an elevator with a different executive, had to pitch their business, and then go up and down. So it's remarkable. There were 100 kids from multiple school districts that were there, and Jessica, on behalf of the Equip project, sold them and won $1,000.
In like 35 seconds.
Yeah, like 35 seconds one way. So very neat. And the thinking that goes on and how they're...
Is it escalator or elevator?
Escalator.
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 Yeah.
Not that it matters.
I appreciate that. I thought it was an
I thought it was
elevator.
elevator too.
One of the things that I thought was very interesting was just her being astute to the fact of, yeah, you've got what you want to say, but also being reading the person you're in the elevator with. And Kara really, when I talked to her today about it, really thought that she used that to her advantage and how she responded to some of the different people in just kind of unique ways. So pretty cool. 1 out of 100 to win the competition.
I can see that though. She's so poised.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
She's amazing. I also wanted to mention today our very own Dr. Fields was awarded by the Missouri Elementary Principals Group, the state's elementary principals group, with the Distinguished Principal honor. He's one of 11 principals in the state of Missouri to receive this honor. I still don't know who nominated him. He was nominated by someone, and they came to Steger Gibbons today, and the kids were gathered in the auditorium, and it was all quiet, and all the administrators who could be there, and the group was there to present him, and they had invited his family, so all of his 4 children, along with his wife and his mom and dad, which was pretty sweet moment. So really neat. I too wanted to echo the sentiments regarding Coach Ice. Football record speaks for itself, but I've spoken with many current as well as mainly a lot of former players of Coach Ice's who will talk about the role that he played in his life. And it's just like any great coach, it's so much more important than anything sports related. And for some, they contribute them just their life, even some of them being alive due to Coach Ice and the connection that he still has with a lot of these kids. Even Coach Ice last year, now this is kind of probably most famous football player, but Adrian Claiborne was playing in the Super Bowl last year, and Coach Ice drove down and watched the game and stuff like that. Pretty neat. So a lot of really great things happening. We mentioned different events, the orchestra, the band also last week. It's an exciting time in the school district. It's a busy time for administrators and a lot of people, but it's great. Anytime we can get together to celebrate our kids and just watch them perform and whatever it is, it's fantastic. And which leads me to tonight, our guests of honor, the main celebrations this evening, our National Merit Competition students. The majority of you are full aware of the National Merit. I didn't learn it until well after high school because I would have never qualified for such. But this is an extraordinarily competitive scholarship program where ultimately you'll have approximately 1.6 million kids or so across the country who are excellent students, who satisfy their criteria, who take an exam, most of the PSAT, for this particular competition. 1.6 million. Only a small percentage of them get recognized. The top 2% of 1.6 million get commended, the award of commendation. And tonight we have 4 students. I don't know if they're all here. I know one of them's not because he's my former neighbor. Who received this particular commendation. We want to honor these students by calling them by name and congratulating you personally, and then giving you an opportunity to share what comes next for you. If you already have thoughts related to after Webster goes high school, or not. But we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear you acknowledge anybody that you want to acknowledge, including any family or loved ones who are in the room with you today. So I will start with Liam. I don't think Liam's here though. So then we'll move on to Patrick. Congratulations, Patrick.
So I'm here with my mom, Sarah, and I guess as far as for plans for the future, I've applied to 11 colleges, kind of just gonna see what they all say back and kind of go from there. So kind of still in the midst of the college process, but it's a very exciting time, and I'm definitely getting excited about the next 4 years of my life. And then as far as what I'm looking to do, looking towards a degree in international relations or something of that sort, because I really like politics and law and all that kind of stuff, but I also really like the foreign emphasis that international relations has. So yeah, that's what I hope to be spending the next 4 years doing. So yeah.
Thank you. Next we have Sean Sullivan. Congratulations, Sean. Sandy, can you turn off that mic?
Yeah.
Could be that mic. Maybe.
Do not really have anything to share. That is why I just stand.
Great. Congratulations. And also wanted to put his name into the room, Raymond Wetzel Meehan, wonderful young person, my former neighbor. But he was also one of the commended students. So we mentioned the top 2%. The top 1% of that 1.6 million is they go into the category of semifinalist, and they have an opportunity to be a finalist for this particular accommodation. And again, when you think of 1% from 1.6 million, that's a pretty elite group, along with the 2%. And today we have one student who received this honor, and that is Claire Morris.
I'm here with my parents, Stacy and Jeff. I'm still looking at colleges. I've applied to 4. We visited pretty much every weekend last month. So I haven't decided on that. I'm just trying to see how it goes, I guess, with the visits and everything. So far I'm looking at possibly a career in forensic science or astronomy.
Cool. Well, students, again, we're so proud of you. Parents, family, loved ones, those present, those not. You've done a great job with these particular kiddos, and we look forward to following their paths through the world and career beyond their time at West Sugar's High School. And don't ever be strangers once you walk out that door on graduation. So, congratulations.
All right, you all are welcome to stay, but if anybody has homework or something else they need to go do, I suspect that you might. You're welcome to leave at this time. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda, we have an initial review of board policies. These are policies that the subcommittee has reviewed and are submitting to the rest of the board for consideration. You'll have another opportunity to review them before we vote. If you have any questions, Keto, Joe, or myself will be happy to answer them. And then apparently MSBA has given us some money, so yay.
A rebate through our use of their P card. Mike Purnell was on his way to Webster Groves the last time we had a full meeting set. We turned him around Warrenton, I think. That was our snow-shortened meeting. But he was going to be here on hand to present. We told him you don't have to drive this way again, but we just wanted to thank MSBA for the money.
Yeah, every bit helps, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, board candidate filing. The filing for school board candidates opens December 17th at 8 a.m. and continues through, what's the last date on here? January 21st. January 21st, thank you. So in addition to the current vacancy left by Arnold Stricker, there are 3 current school board members whose terms are expiring and who are up for re-election. And so thought I'd give everybody an opportunity at this time. Those 3 are Joe, David, and myself, to share, if you would like, whether or not you're interested or whether you plan to file for re-election.
I am planning to file for re-election.
Good.
Ladies first?
No?
Okay, all right. So yes, I plan to file for re-election as well.
Well, and I'm going last just because I am sure I've told everyone in this room that I am not filing for re-election. However, when Arnold resigned, and we're now looking at the possibility of, with all of us being on the same cycle, Joe, David and I, and then Joe are the next most experienced board members. And if the 3 of us, or 2 of the 3 of us, one of the 3 of us were not reelected, we're looking at a board of you all and some brand new board members. And that, I think the board functions most effectively when we have a blend of new perspective and ideas with some, folks with more experience and leadership. And so I have decided that I am going to run for re-election. So, all right, that's that.
And perhaps to be clear, I think we all plan to run for the 3-year terms.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes, there will be a 2-year term that is open as a result of Arnold's departure, and we will all file for the 3-year term. Okay, thanks, David. Okay, so then we need to show up on December 17th and put our names on the list. Okay, next up, board calendar. Our next meeting will not be until the
11th of
workshop
January.
meeting, 11th of January, which is a Saturday, where we'll be talking about some pretty significant issues related to Prop E. Other than that, does anybody have any additions or changes to the calendar? All right, correspondence log has been updated. Review that at your leisure. It's also open to the public. And then now we'll have our first opportunity for public comments. Would anyone like to make a public comment? Mr. Buck.
Dave Buck, I've got a fifth grader at Bristol and a grandchild at Walter Ambrose. You all give celebrations, so I'm going to give one from the peanut gallery. And she's not here tonight, which I think is pretty good because I wouldn't want to have embarrassed her, but I think one of the reasons this district is so strong is that it's got an amazingly strong central office of all these people here, Kathy, everybody. But I want to focus on Kristen Denbo for a minute. I met Kristen in 2010 when my twins, Annie and Sawyer, attended Steger, and she was tremendous. And what I found really interesting is that during the search for the superintendent, they did some focus groups, several focus groups at the high school. And one of the questions that was asked was, of all your years in the district, what's your best year? What's your best year? And almost unanimously, the seniors and juniors said Steger. And I think Kristen had a lot to do with that. She obviously came here to the central office. She's got a ton on her plate, but I want to focus on the curriculum because that's how I know her best, because I serve on the curriculum council committee along with Keita, along with Kristen. And we meet 4 times a year. They're all great meetings. Kristen does a great job. I mean, it's a massive, daunting job to handle curriculum, I think, in this district, particularly when you consider that the high school offers like 260 different classes. I mean, this is a huge job. But I specifically want to point out the meeting we had last Wednesday. We had it over at the service center. Kristen was sick as a dog. And she could really look like this. She didn't have a voice. She could have canceled the meeting, but she showed up because she said she had to run some stuff by us. And Angela Thompson was there from the high school, and first she talks about how they're going to replace dormant classes with this new lineup. And I'm just saying, I ask a lot of questions in these meetings, and I can be kind of critical, but I'm sitting there going, God, that is really cool. And then Kristen runs down her own agenda, and she talks about social studies, and she talks about enrichment for all, and we talk about the leadership class that Matt Irvin's doing at the high school, and about expanding experience the Chelsea Center down to other schools. And I'm just sitting there going, God, this is awesome. That's great. That's great. That's great. And it's like, I came home and I told Barb, my wife, I said, I need to appreciate Kristen more for what she does, because she is amazing. And the thing is, she was so sick that the rest of us kept asking her questions. And I know she just wanted to go home, but we wouldn't let her go home because we kept asking her questions because it was so interesting. But I'm just saying, I think this district is so fortunate to have her, and I just wanted to say that.
All right, thank you. Other public comments?
Hi everybody, my name is Alan Todd. I live at 35 Rosemont Avenue here in Webster Groves. And I'm here today because I just wanted to let everyone know that I do intend to file for the open 2-year term that is open due to Dr. Stricker's resignation. I am a proud parent of a 2nd grader and a preschooler at Walter Ambrose Family Center. That's really where my involvement with the district started. We enrolled our daughter at Ambrose, and We were talking before the meeting started, when you guys were in closed session, that's really where she started to blossom and sort of open up, and I could see sort of the impact that her teachers and a building could have on my child. And it really just sort of got me excited to be a part of the district. I ended up serving 2 years as the PTO president at Ambrose, which was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. So also I have been on the Finance Advisory Committee for the last 4 years now as well, and I'm currently the chair of the Finance Advisory Committee. That's given me a different perspective of the district and sort of how it operates. Just a little bit about me sort of from a personal level. Like I said, I have 2 kids and a wife, and we live on Rosemont. But I am currently the Director of Partnerships for a nonprofit organization here in St. Louis called Health Literacy and Media. So we do a lot of health advocacy and health communication. I sort of come from a long line of work in my career in politics and policy and advocacy. So I've spent time working in Jefferson City in the state legislature. I've spent time in Washington, D.C. and ran a congressional office there. I've managed campaigns at the state level, at the federal level. So I have a pretty broad experience. But when I think about my experience, I really think about the core of what I've always done has been relationship building. And I think that's something that I can bring to the board as well, because I think that's important to not only have a relationship as a board, but also with the community and the people that we're here to serve. So I think that's a really important aspect. My wife might disagree, but I also think I'm a pretty good listener. So I don't know what I don't know, but I'm here to listen and to learn and sort of bring that to the table as well. Just sort of foundationally, I come from a family farm, but also from a long line of educators. My mother was a kindergarten teacher for 36 years. I have superintendents that are in our family. My dad's sister is the current dean of the College of Education at Arkansas State University. So public education has been something that I've been around and been involved in for a long time in my life. So I think it would be really exciting to be able to bring some of that experience here to this board. I'm not going to turn this into a big speech. I'm going to wrap it up quickly, but I do sort of believe sort of fundamentally that public education is important to children and to us as a society. I sort of built my career and sort of learned it from my family that sort of how we make positive change for people is serving those that are the most vulnerable among us, and that's sort of where I come from sort of at my core, and I hope to bring that here. I'm especially passionate about sort of serving and helping those people that are most vulnerable simply because the system wasn't designed to help them or designed to support them. So I'm excited to potentially join you guys on the board and sort of bring that experience as we think about the mission, vision, and governance of the school district and sort of this role as a school board member, and hope to be able to join you in April. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the work you've already done for the district and your willingness to continue. Any other public comments? Okay, well that segues nicely into the discussion of the school board member vacancy. And I've given this a lot of thought, and I've processed it with John and with David, and my recommendation at this point, and this is of course open for discussion, but I'm going to recommend that we not fill the position for several reasons. First, as we just discussed, the candidate filing is opening December 17th. The voters will have an opportunity to fill the position, and so there is a process by which that's going to happen. Second, I'm concerned about, we had 2 outstanding finalists, and I don't think it's fair to them. I think we all had an opportunity to evaluate what they would bring to the board, and we just came down in different places on that issue. I don't think it's fair to them to bring them back and make them go through another series of, jump through more hoops or answer more questions. I just don't think that's fair. And I also don't think that it makes a lot of sense at this point to go back to the drawing board and either ask people to reapply or get a fresh pool of candidates. So that's kind of where I am on this issue, and David, feel free to chime in. But I of course want to hear your all's thoughts. I just don't know of a way to do it that will be fair. And the other issue that I considered was the fact that we've been a really cohesive board. It's not like we've been 4-3 on a lot of issues, so I don't I don't have a sense of urgency in filling the position that I might if we were less cohesive, but I feel like we're functioning pretty well with 6 of us. I think that we can make it through until April when the voters select somebody. But that's my recommendation. I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts.
I'm aligned. Yeah. No, I one of the things I was thinking is, and this is, you know, if this were to happen, would be if only the 3 of you are running for the 3-year and only one person runs for the 2-year. At the end of filing, if that's how it works out, would we then consider bringing the one person on if there's no one running against that person?
I think that's something we certainly could do. I would be, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that. Because then we know that person's going to be, we might as well let them get I mean, depending on, yeah, I mean, potentially.
If someone else runs and it's at the.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But just a thought on getting someone in and giving them a bit of a head start.
Yeah.
Is there a time frame in which we would have to appoint someone to the position after announcing that we had an open position?
No.
No. Okay. And I think it's worth asking.
I agree. I mean, I think we're pretty cohesive. I don't anticipate any kind of big brawls.
We haven't had one yet. So far.
Over anything. I think we all pretty much have the same interest in helping the kids in the district, which is what the purpose is.
Absolutely.
I'm okay with that. I wouldn't be against Alex's suggestion either, seeing what shakes after filing is over.
Yeah.
I agree. I think there's no easy way to make that decision. At this point, it's such a short time before the election that it's not going to make a huge difference to just wait it out.
Yeah. We were really fortunate to have so many
Absolutely.
qualified people want to do it. It's almost like, you know, it was too hard to pick just one. Go ahead.
And I agree with your recommendation.
All right. Then we shall see what April brings. And then at the end of filing, we will, at the next meeting, we'll revisit the issue of, you know, if there's only one person going out and making the appointment. Is that okay?
Yeah, that
Anything you
sounds
want to
good.
add?
No, I think it's a good decision I think it's a good decision.
Yeah. Thanks to, particularly to Aaron and Joel, who were both fantastic.
Yeah, and to Brian to get up in
Absolutely.
front,
And to
get in
Brian,
front,
yeah.
and it's just a nerve-wracking
Yeah.
experience,
Yeah.
and care enough about the district and interest in the position to come up and be willing to do that.
Yeah.
Very neat.
Because they're not in it for the money, folks.
No, they're not.
All right. Reports from superintendent and staff. Dr. Wiley, you have an update for us on the calendar?
I do. Hello, everyone. Hopefully you saw, can you hear me? This is.
Oh, we turned it off earlier because there's.
Sorry.
We're on.
Hopefully you saw the materials in the packet. Just wanted to bring to you the final recommendation or final recommended calendar for 2021. Again, just a reminder that we went through this process for the benefit of the legislation that passed that stated we cannot start school any more than 14 days before the first Monday of September. And so we had to modify our calendar that we had already approved in February of last year. So what you have before you or what's in your packet, I updated it. This was without all of the highlights, but it lists us some changes that we wanted to identify. First, I want to highlight that the calendar still has a lot of things that we appreciate here in the district. The winter break is still pretty good length, in addition to us ending before Memorial Day. And as well as us being able to have, we modified our spring break to be in line with other St. Louis County districts. So it's that last full week in March. And that's something that we'll plan to continue to move forward. But just want to highlight a couple of points. Typically, we don't start school on a Monday, But because, again, of that legislation, we are going to start school. That first day of school for students will be on the 24th of August, which of course is pushing it back of about 7 days. Our initial approval was on August 13th. The thing I want to point...
Long week.
Long week. And before I continue on, I want to thank my calendar committee as well as the issues committee. And I also pulled together a parent group to get feedback about this. No one was necessarily excited about it, but where do you go, right? Because the only other option, really, we're locked. The only other option is to move school so that it ends after Memorial Day. Then that pushes summer school back even further into the month of July, which for some kids could really eliminate their opportunity for a break. And that's not something that we wanted to do. So you'll notice between August 12th through the 19th, we've listed PD days. Those are professional development days for teachers. The teacher contract is still 193 days. The student instructional days have been dropped from 177 to 174. And truthfully, the student attendance days were really only 175.5, but we were able to count those half days. So this calendar still allows for us to have a good number of our student attendance days, which keeps us at about 174. Still shorter, but we're still kind of very close to that. But the teacher days from August 12th through the 19th, those will be what we're calling PD days. Also attached to your materials, you had a sample or a draft of what those August days could look like. The calendar committee was to get that out there so other people, the IDEA committee, Chris's office, and a couple of other committees will come together to determine what those will look like. But the goal is for us to, of course, have more PD, which we're always excited about. But also you'll notice Jumpstart conferences is in the month of August as well. And the thought is that they're really not, Jumpstart conferences are really for teachers to be able to learn about families, meet the student, meet the family. And so it gives them a really good opportunity to meet the kiddos before school actually starts. They can plan for some things and have some good conversations. We surveyed the staff to figure out what they want, and this is where we've landed. We're currently working right now on 21-22. I don't know if that'll be the recommendation, or we may, we'll see how it goes for the 2021 school year. But we're really excited about that because it does give, again, teachers the opportunity of learning and growing with families even before they start. So if there's any additions or modifications they need to make, they can do that. Other than that, we have the calendar kind of reads the way that it is. We did, in fact, have a no school day on November, is my screen moving? Yeah, on November, there we go, on November 3rd. That is a presidential election day, so we made that a professional development day, if you were wondering why that fell on a Tuesday. That's why, I'm sure, I don't know how the turnout will be, but it may be a large turnout for the presidential election. Didn't want to have kiddos in schools just in case. The one thing to notice really is that the first semester, of course, is going to be shorter than the second semester. We talked with the high school about that, again, because we've lost those days in the beginning of the year. So they are aware of that and are working to make adjustments and or modifications so that they can try to still get as much instruction in before finals. We did entertain the thought of maybe moving finals to January. That was not necessarily well received. Don't want kiddos, thinking about finals over break and having that pressure over their heads. And so there is some work that the high school has to do to really be mindful of having a shorter number of days first semester versus second semester. But we feel that that's kind of the best place for it to be right now, again, considering the current situation with the calendar. Again, there's not really much to point out. The rest of it kind of reads the way that it is. We don't currently have a date for the high school graduation. So once we get that, that will be another update that we will make and put it on there because, again, we didn't have it at the time of drafting this calendar here. If you'll notice summer school locations, just want to point that out. We're not 100% sure of how construction and all of those things will pan out. So you'll notice the elementary schools will have summer school at Steger. And then high school and middle school will both have their summer school locations at the high school, knowing that Hickson will probably be in some form of construction. And so we'll just have it at the high school just to try to, steer clear of what could potentially go on there. So this is our calendar. as nice and as not nice as some parts of it is, this is kind of what we've come up with and hopefully gotten enough voices from the table. When I met with parents, they thought that we should get ahead of it and communicate it if you guys approve this. So we will try to have multiple ways of communicating it out just so that families are aware of those changes, specifically that start date, and really just kind of prepping their kids for having a long, those 5-year-olds for a long first week. So we'll see how that goes. If it doesn't go well, again, we're still doing 21, 22. We're in those conversations now, and if we have to come back to it, I'll bring it back to you if some of these things that we're proposing now maybe didn't work for 2021. So we're definitely open to making any adjustments as need be for future calendars. But we will have to bring to you 21, 22. So the calendar right now is looking through that, and I told them just pretend like we're at a blank slate and we're just starting from scratch, like just wipe it clean. We may even have a different format for you, so we can take a look at that. But our goal would be to try our best to formulate a calendar that's going to best meet the needs of the students. Sometimes we just go with what we've had instead of just really reimagining it. So that's kind of where we are with 21, 22.
Sandy, will you speak real briefly before they ask questions to the minutes?
Yes, so one of the recommendations, again, so one thing to note, the high school late starts are still there. The state, also another change is that instead of being worried about the number of days and hours, the state is only requiring us to be in session 1,044 hours. When we take away those days, then we've lost instructional time. So one of the conversations we had with the committees, all of the committees that we spoke with, is if we were to just add 20 minutes to the instructional day, then that would eliminate, in some instances, us having to make up snow days, right? Because again, the state's not worried about days, they're worried about hours, amount of time of actual instructional time. So we could, on a half day, make up another portion of a half day to make that time back up, right? So we have that flexibility. But by adding 20 minutes to the day, which is the committee's recommendation, we would be able to eliminate needing to make up a snow day for elementary through Hickson up to 5 or 6 days of snow days. And then high school is a little bit different because of their late starts. So they have 22 hours that of late starts that they have. So they're in a little bit of a different boat. So their makeup would probably be after day 3 or 4, but that gives us more space, right? Than right now, if you miss 1 or 2 days, then you're kind of in a makeup status. So it does allow you with that additional time. The other component of adding 20 minutes is that we researched all of the St. Louis County districts, and we found that our instructional day was the shortest instructional day in the county. So we are reporting 6 hours, 10 minutes, and most other districts are reporting 6 hours, 30 minutes, 6 hours, 40 minutes. And so with making that addition, we actually put ourselves in the same boat of the number of instructional minutes as all of the other St. Louis County districts, and teachers and people at the table felt that that was a good decision to make at that time. We also know that you guys had mentioned to us with regard to tiering the times and taking a look at maybe high school starting later, or middle schools and things like that. And so the calendar committee, we did address that conversation, and actually I brought it to the principals and the other groups, and people were all for it. So we would make that recommendation for that to happen, but our committee was not the committee to do that work. So that has now been passed to a different group of people to discuss and think through. We have processed, like, do you do it all at one time? Do you add the 20 minutes this year, and then next year do you make the tiered adjustments, or do you just do it all, for 2021? And so I think we're kind of in that state of where we're trying to figure it all out. Is it best just to rip the Band-Aid off, or ease people into it? So those are the conversations we're having right now. But the committees were both in favor of adding the 20 minutes as well as modifying those tiered times so that high school could start a little bit later.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
I just saw it and I apologize. Elementary school Steger. Is it Steger or is it Givens?
Which one? I'm sorry.
The summer school location.
Oh, it's at Steger. So the summer school location for elementary schools will be at Steger. So all of the elementary students for summer school will report to Steger.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Can I make that clearer?
Well, I thought it was Givens.
They're going to be at Givens is too small.
So they're going to be in the middle school.
Yes.
The 6th grade center. Okay.
Yes. Right now we're averaging over 300 kids for summer school. It's a nice, yeah. It's growing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My other question was about the Jump Start conferences. You said you will make sure that all families will be aware of the start date of August 24th as
Yes.
the first day of school.
Mhm.
What kind of outreach could you imagine or has been discussed about the K through 6 Jumpstart conferences?
So our goal is to heavily communicate that. So I'm working with Kathy V to create memos to get information out there on Facebook, on our website, push it to the principals and have them to push it to their families so that they can be prepared, so parents can have that knowledge and be prepared to be in town for those conferences or for that day that they'll have scheduled. We've also talked about, and some parents mentioned, they were like, if we're out of town, we could call in, right? Or we can Skype, or, you know, we can, like, there's other ways that we can communicate. The parents that we spoke with didn't see it as a hindrance, but that's our goal, to communicate it, overly communicate it, so that they're knowledgeable about it now, so that in their planning, they could be available for that.
And are those taking away PD times for teachers?
The Jumpstart conferences, no, they're not. So currently, there's 3 days before the start of school, so we're adding 3 additional days. So those 3 days, that what our recommendation is those 3 days, August 12th, 13th, and 14th would be PD. Now, whether that's district or building, it's to be determined, yeah. And then 17th, 18th, 19th, it's really the autonomy of the schools and the teachers to make those decisions. So, but there's still going to be PD embedded there. The nice part about it is that the teachers can flex their schedule. So if a building says Jumpstart conferences are on, I'm just saying this randomly, Jumpstart conferences will be on the 18th and 19th, then the building could say, we're going to do the 18th will be 8 to 4, so you can do Jumpstarts in the morning for those families that need a morning time, and then the 19th, your schedule will be 10 to 6. I don't know, I'm just saying something. And so that you can accommodate families at night. And then teachers would have the flexibility to fit those parents in.
Okay.
Yeah, so that'll be the goal.
Thanks. And thank you to the committee and yourself as well. I mean, I know there was a lot to undertake
It was.
in a short time. Thank you.
It was. Yeah, they were very gracious, very understanding. I mean, when you don't have options, you don't, right? You just try to make the best out of it that you can. So we'll see, like I said before, and I told them if we live this and we're like, oh, that hurt, then we can come back to you guys and say, okay, like, can we rethink 21, 22? We know we approved it, but here's a different recommendation. And I told them that I'd be willing to do that. We want to develop a calendar to benefit the community, right? And if it doesn't, then we need to make the change, so.
Do you know we were going to add the 20 minutes?
So there's been conversation about adding it holistically at the beginning of the day or at the end. And so schools have been talking about it being, like high school Hickson has talked about it being like conferencing time, homeroom where you come in and you have that time. Elementary's talked about it being like an intervention time or block where students are actually getting some supports. I don't think that's been landed. I think we're kind of leaning more towards the end. But yeah.
Well, that's one of the pieces when she talked about with the scheduling, because right now in Webster, our schools share buses. So as we think about the calendar, like one thing that we'd like to do once we get through the end of implementation is have all of our elementaries start at the same time. Currently, we have 3 different start times for elementaries. Part of that, it's largely due to transportation. And so our goal ultimately would be to have all of them starting at the same time. A goal would be to have high school kids start later. Currently, we have conflict with Walter Ambrose, with Clark and Edgar Road. Just those start times aren't the best for families. So we're going to see what we can accomplish. That was one of the things. We were going to do the 20 minutes, and we were thought about, okay, we could just add it on at the end. We could add it at the beginning to everybody, and that makes the transportation piece easy. But then we thought, okay, if our end goal is to do something different, can we move closer to that next year as opposed to waiting to 21, 22? So we'll kind of be working on that. Pam's involved in that. Bruce is helping consult that as we try to figure that out. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Hopefully sooner rather than later. That's the goal. Bless you.
So a clarification first. So on the high school, the late start high school days, the school just ends still at the same time that day. We haven't gone and pushed everything back on those
That
days.
is correct.
Okay. I'm excited that you're looking at, and I know that's why you said it because it's important, but I'm excited about the idea that we look at the start times, especially in the high school. I think everyone's seen sort of the all of the research that suggests that will improve outcomes. So I'd be interested to hear that. The number of professional days you've got right at the very beginning of the year. I guess I'd be interested, in addition to your reporting back in terms of the jump starts, I'd be interested to hear back also in terms of, do you think that it's efficient to have that many days at the beginning of the year, right at the beginning? I recognize you're trying something, you're going to go and review it, and I'd just be interested if you can come back to the board and let us know how that works and how you think about things. So I appreciate that you're trying new things, you're being flexible, you'll go and review how they work, and you'll make recommendations then based on what you think is work and achieving the outcomes you desire.
Oh, we sure will. Thank you.
And we're
Sure will.
super excited about that. I know Chris would probably say if she was here, she's super excited because one, you're getting any kind of development and curricular work in prior to the children starting, which it's really hard for teachers to be out of the classroom. It's better for kids if they're in the classroom. So we'll be able to reduce the amount of times teachers are away for the kids and provide them with that development. Because when you're the teacher and you're thinking about, oh my gosh, all the kids in your room, and how's that one child doing? Is the sub going to remember this? Or just like, to have that space where you could just focus in on the development is really a big deal. But we will certainly bring that back to you.
And John, can I just put a little bug out there? I know the homeworks where they do home visits.
Yeah.
It seems like this might be advantageous to allowing that to happen.
Uh-huh.
And I know it doesn't fall under the calendar purview, but
Yeah, it's really
That was
just a
mentioned.
it's a
jumpstart and
great way
stuff.
to really encourage family participation.
Yeah.
That was mentioned though in the committee, so that did
Oh.
come up as an option. And just another point, one of those days we have allocated as just a teacher workday,
don't touch.
so not to touch it, right? So no meetings. That's one day just for the teacher to be in their space, doing whatever they need to do. So one of those 6 days will be absolutely designated to the benefit of just teachers working in there without a meeting, without a scheduled appointment or anything like that. So we're happy about that and see how that feels too.
Excellent.
You mentioned revisiting if we do this and it hurts. The things that I foresee hurting are, in addition to that first week of school, that's a lot of, that's a shock to everybody. But then, have we considered, I'm just looking at from the second semester, January you have a couple days off, February you have a couple days off, March you've got spring break. In addition to conferences, and then April and May, there's nothing. Was there any, in terms of time off?
Yeah, there
So
was.
those are the 2 months that I see might hurt, because that's a long time with no break, and we're not likely to get any snow in April or May, although it
Well,
happen.
yeah, never know in St. Louis.
Right. So I just wondered if, I know not all districts do a full week of spring break, was that something that we've considered? Maybe
That did
breaking
come
that
up.
into-
Yeah, both the parent group and the teachers were against cutting spring break. They wanted to maintain it as a whole. April, that did come up as possibly a day or something in April to help alleviate the pressure, but that's also the month for MAP testing and EOCs. And so teachers were like, I would just prefer not. Like, you're trying to fit so much in for the assessments that the state mandates, and so they were nervous about taking any time off in the month of April. And then in May, that topic did not come up for the month of May. They looked at their half day for K-6 on the 7th, and for high school, they're just like, we're just trying to run it, get our seniors in, get those finals, make sure everything is finished. But we have a calendar meeting tomorrow night. I can take that question back to them to process through as we think through possibly some alternatives for April, May.
Yeah, I obviously
take
don't want
that.
to second guess. I'm just wondering if anybody else saw that as a potential
Yes.
period.
April is an ouch month. It is an ouch month. And like I told him, I said, we don't know the window yet, so it's hard for us to determine. Like, the DESE gives you a window by which you have to administer the tests. Like, would we put a day off in there? And then makeups are horrendous, and so, but we can process it further.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Appreciate all your hard work and the committees.
No worries.
All right, anything else on calendar?
Motion.
Thank you. Sorry, we need a motion to approve.
Did I put that on there? I'm sorry.
Make a motion to approve the 2020-2021 school calendar.
Second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Ms. Frazier, budget adjustments.
Okay, so our first budget adjustment of the year. As you know, when the budget is adopted in June, there are a lot of estimates that have to be used. As we go through the budget process and as the year starts progressing, we get better information and we'll come to the board for a budget adjustment. So we'll start by looking at revenue. So current and delinquent taxes are being increased by just about $400,000. That is mainly due to the recoupment that the board approved, that one-time recoupment tax that the board approved in September. Then we have Prop C, or sales tax. That amount of revenue is determined by taking a funding factor that's multiplied by the previous year's average daily attendance, ADA. Last year's ADA ended up being a little bit higher than what was estimated, and now DESE has also increased the amount that we'll be receiving per ADA. They're recommending that we use somewhere between 1,010 and 1,036, but they're telling us to be cautious in this area. So I've used 1,015 per ADA to come up with this budget number, and that's an increase of almost $58,000. Under local revenue, we needed to make a decrease. That is for the VIC program. When the budget was adopted in June, that was just an estimate. We now have an actual amount from VIC that they've given us, so we've reduced that budget to reflect the number that they gave us. And then basic formula, that one is also calculated largely on the previous year's ADA. So like I said, that went up just a little bit. And then they have a state adequacy target, which is their funding mechanism in there. We put 6,350 for the SAT. They're saying right now they think it's going to end the year being 6,375. We're going conservative right now just in case that doesn't go up. If it does go up, that will be another $100,000 for the district. On the expenditure side, the Walter Ambrose Family Center, we're increasing their budget by $35,407. When their budget was approved in June, they were still finalizing their budget, so this was just that finalized budget now placed into our system. Other professional services are being increased by $141,533. That is really three main categories there: $50,000 for the redistricting consultant, $25,000 for the equity training, and then the rest is going to the curriculum instruction department, and most of that is for a reading intervention program. We had to increase our rent account for the cost of moving graduation off campus. And supplies are being increased almost $200,000, but $180,000 of that is carryover from the buildings from last year. So a lot of the buildings, if they have money left over, they'll want to save it and carry that over into this year. Maybe they're doing things like buying technology for their students with those funds, so that allows them to do that. And then we had $20,000 that was added to the Thrive budget. On the bond expenditures, reduced that by $7 million. Those projects will be going out to bid in January and February, so we're estimating that we're going to spend about $6.1 million. So we reduced it by 7 to get down to the 6.1 million. Then obviously we'll be spending the rest of that in next fiscal year.
Can I go back to the,
Yes.
before we go forward? Can you explain that $180,000 supplies increase again, for expenditure?
Yep, so the district allows the buildings and the departments, if they have money left in their budget, they can roll it over instead of it just going back into the district's fund balance and staying there. They can roll it forward to the next year, especially if they're doing a big project. Like I said, it helps them buy technology for their classroom and things like that they need. It also eliminates them from during the year saying, oh my gosh, I have this budget and I just have to spend it on something. So hopefully now they're doing it a little more purposeful, by saying that we want laptops or we want iPads or whatever it is that they want for their students.
So is this 179,870 that we won't have to spend, that we thought we were going to have to spend? Or
No, it's additional expenditure in this year, but it's money they did not spend last year.
Okay.
So we're gonna
okay.
let them spend it this
Okay,
year.
thank you.
Mhm.
And then I had one other question on the Walter Ambrose Family Center increase. Was that a particular item of increase, or was it just apportioned across their budget? Does anybody know?
It was in salary and benefits.
Salary and benefits, okay, thank you. Thanks, Joanne.
So now if we look at the operating adjustments, so the total for the operating accounts, which is the general account, the teachers fund, and the capital projects account, revenue is being increased by $427,619. Expenditures decreased by approximately $6.6 million, with a deficit in adjustments of $6.2 million. But then on the right side there, I took out the bond account, so the revenue is the same, and the expenditures then are being increased by $396,810, which is going to add a $30,000, almost $31,000 surplus to the surplus we already had in the operating accounts. Here, looking at debt service, the only adjustment we've made in debt service was for taxes. On the revenue side, we increased that by $130,375. Then the total budget for the operating funds right now then is, for the revenue is $63,872,119. Expenditures at $69,648,510, for a deficit of just about $5.8 million. But remember, that is for the Prop E accounts. We wouldn't have a deficit if it wasn't that we're spending money on our Prop E projects this year that we received the bond proceeds last fiscal year. So to the right then, I took out the bond accounts, and if you look there, we have a budget surplus of $123,609. So here, just a breakdown of the budget. On the revenue side, 83% of our revenue comes from local sources, mainly our tax revenue. Sales tax is also in that category. 14% comes from the state, 2% federal, and 1% county. Then on the expenditure side, as you know, salary and benefits make up the majority of that budget at about, 66%. Purchase services, 8%. Supplies, 7%. Capital is 10%. That includes the Prop E project, so that's higher than in previous years because of that. And then our bond payments are at 9% of the total expenditure budget. So that is all of the adjustments that we're recommending this evening. I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Questions? All right, thank you very much.
Motion?
Oh, yes, we do need a motion to approve the budget adjustment.
Motion to approve budget adjustment 1 as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Right.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. Thanks for reminding me. Prop E update.
No, we're okay. Okay. So just wanted to give you all, I've never seen the fade, an update on Prop E. Is there anything I can do? Oh, there we go. Nope. That's mini.
Yes, it is.
Much more logical in the back.
That's better. Prop E update, just wanted to give you kind of an update on where we are with a few things, answer any questions that you have. First of all, design and construction. Amy referenced some big things that we'll talk about on January 11th. One of those things right now, Dickinson, Hussman, and Honer are, Pam and I met with Rob last week, and they're in the process of finalizing all the design work related to our projects. We got the opportunity to see kind of the designs from each of the schools. It's really pretty exciting. It's pretty cool, all the work that they're doing. We discussed with Rob all that Honer's doing. Again, Honer's looking at all the windows, the doors, the elevators, things really, all the other things related to accessibility. So on January 11th, what the plan is to come to you so that you can see all that work, so you get to see all the design work. And ultimately, we need to approve the construction documents, you do, not we, cost estimates, which at that point, then they will turn around and go out through to bid for a construction company. It'll take a decent clip of time with the goal of coming to you in March to ask to approve a construction company to do the work. Rob's gotten, I didn't want to share it, still draft, a timeline of all the work, even the specific construction items at this point, that at our January 11th meeting, we'll bring all of that information to you. The goal right now is they want to, as soon as we approve a construction company, you approve a construction company to get the shovels in the ground as soon as possible. Always prioritizing the safety of all of our children and the adults who work at the schools, patrons to campus, and trying to be as least disruptive as possible. Some sites that'll be easier than other sites. So excited about that work going on. Boundary line work, and I'll go through this, and Keita, you just jump in at any point, anything you want to share. Just kind of putting the timeline back in front of you for the boundary line work. Focus groups, we have 16 focus groups scheduled. Cooperative Strategies is in their 5th focus group at this moment. I'm actually going to go down to the service center after we're done here to close up shop and speak with them. They've got 16 scheduled over 3 days. We had a little over 150 people who signed up for focus groups to share their thoughts. They worked with the advisory committee on what questions to ask the groups, to hear their discussion, their information regarding, and the advisory committee narrowed it down to, is it 6? 6 different samples of boundary lines. Again, I've been kept pretty a part of it. I speak to them, but today was the first time I saw the 6 right prior to their first meeting. So this group, the focus groups, will give feedback related to the lines. They'll record notes and the such. They'll bring back those notes to the advisory group, who will then look to narrow their boundary line scenarios down to 3 scenarios. Advisory members, if they're able, meetings will run through the day, into the night. Different schedules on different days are invited. If they want to come and sit in on one of the advisory meetings, they can. Otherwise, they'll all be presented with information regarding the advisory on the 16th. So they'll come up with those 3 scenarios, and then on January 11th, you will be presented at that same big workshop meeting with those scenarios. They'll talk about the process, and then at that point, you can ask, really encouraging you to limit your questions to clarifying questions, so that you're not giving your opinion in front of the committee, because it's really important for us to continue to listening to what people have to say. You're the ultimate decision makers, but ask clarifying questions regarding process, regarding the lines. After you get to see those final 3, you'll be the first ones with the eyes on the final 3 lines. Then after that meeting, that same day, they'll put out a survey to the community to give their feedback regarding those 3 particular scenarios. At that point, although it'll be fairly self-explanatory to many, patrons will be able to put in addresses to see under these different options where would my children go. We also talked about possibly needing other methods to maybe target particular groups in particular. Maybe folks that aren't going to be as into the online component. We talked about different pop-ups. That's something that they've used in other such processes before. January 28th and 29th, that's going to be the open house events. Most of you, Alex wasn't on board yet, but I think Alex came to one. Last year we had open house events where last year it was different options that were up in different places, service center, cafeteria. We invited people to come in and share their thoughts and feelings. They could vote or they could contribute on the survey right then. But that's an opportunity for the board, for administrators, for the consultants, for the advisory to come face to face with anybody else again who wants to share their thoughts related. Cooperative strategies, we'll collect all the survey information. Again, that'll be public. They won't edit that in any way. It'll be out for everybody to see. They'll collect the information from the 28th, 29th, come back to the advisory for that final meeting, and then considering all things, develop a final recommendation that will go before you all February 24th. What I've told the patrons, the staffs all along, is that while even to me it felt a little bit like an aggressive timeline at the front, folks felt good about it, the consultants felt good about it, and this isn't going to be a decision ultimately. We have to make a decision. Time is a factor, but it's not a decision that we want to rush. If we don't feel we're in a good place on the February 24th, then we can delay it a little bit. The last thing, and you know what? Can somebody go get on the printer out there? There should be some things on the printer out there for me. I'll shrink this a little bit. No? Check upstairs, Tim. Maybe I printed upstairs. I'll just print it again because it's going to be small. The one thing I just kind of wanted to cycle back, when we originally talked about the criteria to make the decision regarding the boundary line process, there were a couple questions that I couldn't answer with confidence. And so at the time, board members were encouraged, if you had thoughts related to the criteria, you could send them to Kita, but I also said that I would come back to you with clarification on some items. I wanted to give you what I saw as the current criteria based on what we've heard from the community over the past year, as well as what discussions, the little discussions we've had. On the left is that criteria as I see it today that that we use to guide the ultimate decision making. That criteria is not in any kind of priority order. We know based on the way our housing looks that, as Scott told the group, and he said most often when you have boundary line work, there's three primary factors that people are usually looking for. People value proximity to the school, so the kids have farther to travel on foot or in cars or on buses. People value diverse schools. And then people don't want schools to be grossly underutilized or overutilized. And he tells everybody that you usually can almost get to two of those things, but three of them is usually not possible. So I think our community is probably no different in its ideal state. These are the criteria on the left that I feel comfortable, but it's for you to determine as the ultimate decision makers that the group should consider as they're processing. Consider the kids' proximity to the school as criteria. Try to keep neighborhoods at the same school. When you're dividing up zones, if you can keep the neighborhoods together, that's a good thing. That would be the same for like streets too, but some of our streets go all the way through our district. Try to utilize both natural and non-natural elements as boundaries. Try to avoid any kind of overutilization, underutilization, and then try to promote diversity in schools. On the right was the other criteria that was on that one single sheet that has been used in other projects facilitated by cooperative strategies. So one, work toward common feeder patterns throughout the district. We don't have feeder patterns because that's dealing with the districts that have middle school and high schools and people going to different schools, different middle schools and high schools. Minimize the number of repeated attendance area changes over a particular time period. Some districts are changing zones very frequently. That's not something that we hope to do for a long time after this. Attempt to ensure students zoned to campuses are not moved or negatively impacted when distributing programs among schools. This is primarily different high school consideration, different programs that exist in particular schools. He also referenced for this one, along with the unique needs of the student population at a given campus, he referenced one project they did where they had a significant ELL population, and the students all lived within a particular committee, and they wanted consideration for, and there was like commerce around that particular community. that aligned with the community, and they just wanted people to be mindful when you're drawing your zones, to not redistribute those kids to different places. Utilize projected student enrollment and capacity as principal measures of determining efficient use of educational facilities. That is what we're using, projected enrollment and capacity, which have been predefined, which have been defined. Consider critical masses of change areas to avoid moving small, isolated groups of students. I think that's pretty explanatory. Minimize use of temporary classrooms that cause a school to operate at more than capacity. We have outwardly said, like, our goal is to eliminate the use of the modulars, but we won't get rid of them until we don't need them anymore. Consider fiscal impact to minimize future capital and operational budget cost. Again, that's something that's important. I don't know if it needs to go on the left side. Utilize student transportation resources effectively. Right now, the only students who receive transportation are the students that attend Clark and Edgar Road from the catchment areas. That's something we're exploring right now. Can we widen our transportation zones, transport more kids to school? And then consider anticipated construction and residential growth within the community. Right now, we know of none, and we don't have a lot of space for it. So what I would like from you all is do you see any that from the current side that you think needs to be taken off and moved to the right? Do you see any from the right that you want to move to the left, to the priority area, or what you think? And is there anything that we're
But this is what the committee
missing?
came up with?
This is a lot related to the committee's contributed to this night one.
I mean, does the committee recommend moving anything?
The committee hasn't seen this and been asked that same question. To my knowledge, Keita, can you? Yeah.
No, we
I
haven't
didn't think
seen
so. I didn't think so. I think there was a wish for the board, since you're going to make the final decision, for them to satisfy.
The
But we
question
could do
came
that.
up, the ones on the left were kind of general from everyone, but then there were several people on the committee who wanted a little bit more specifics from the board. So maybe that's how they came up with the things on the right.
So as I look at the list on the right, one thing that continues to catch my eye is sort of 2/3 of the way down. Consider the unique needs of the student population at a given campus, which may not be reflected in the data alone. And to me, that's not so much, doesn't speak so much in terms of the boundary lines, but does speak in terms of your setting building budgets. I think it's really important that you look at, because we're going to have neighborhood schools, the needs may be different there, and so we just, I would hope that we really take that into account as we're setting budgets for the buildings.
Yeah, thank you. And we've talked about that as recent as today. Being mindful of that based on socioeconomic populations of schools. If we have some that are significantly greater, I mean, we have some that are greater now for sure. I mean, I know I was in the Hudson PTO meeting and their budgeted revenue for the year was $23,000, and I think last year maybe the Bristol PTO trivia night maybe raised $70,000. There's big differences. So we've talked about that in our work with actually Dr. Banks and budgeting, and that's something that we would definitely be mindful of, because there are scenarios where a single school is significantly more, has significantly more students currently on free reduced lunch than others. So we would definitely look to align our resources.
Good.
Yeah, thank you.
I felt certain you were. I just thought
Yeah.
it was a point that was worth sort of making it out there. And that's really all.
Christine?
The other thing that I'm seeing is the minimizing use of temporary classrooms, and if I remember correctly, our community was telling us last year that they didn't want the continued use of the modulars.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that's something that's
Absolutely.
considered.
Yeah, that's what I felt like. We've said that a lot. That's why I didn't feel like it had to go on the left, but we can move it to the left. 100% that our goal is to eliminate use of that for
Get all the
use with
kiddos in the
kids.
building.
Yes.
Yeah, they said that, but then there's the grandfathering in. There's a very extensive, long tail grandfathering, which is going to make that harder to get out of sooner, right?
Yeah, the phasing in process will likely lead us to have the modular units longer. Maybe not necessarily at the schools they're currently at, likely, probably, by the numbers, but we don't know. They certainly stand out more when you're at Avery, especially. That one stands out because their space is so small in that school. Edgar Road, they stand out. There's 3 of them. They're starting to. Clark, it's not as noticeable. It's noticeable, but they've got such a big backyard, so to speak. But definitely our priority is to remove them. I didn't personally, based on what I've heard, based on what I've seen, feel like there was a need to move any from right to left, even though some of them are priorities on the right, but I felt that the committee just kind of stuck to those on the left.
Yeah, I feel like quite a few on the right were dealt with the passage of Prop B more so
Yeah.
than the boundary line.
Agree. That's how I saw it.
I think a lot covers this.
Yeah. Okay, if you guys are good with that.
Okay, thank you. We now have our second opportunity for public comments.
I just have a couple of comments, I guess they're board comments, if you want to call it. The first one, and I'll preface by saying, I wasn't here. I don't even know all 8 of the candidates except one, because he's a neighbor of mine, and he's the president of the foundation, a good friend. I wasn't here for the narrowing, I wasn't here for the interviews, I wasn't here for the voting. But all I can tell you is that some of the opinion out there is that the board couldn't make a decision. 3-3, they're deadlocked, hung jury. They couldn't get together and pick somebody. So I'm just saying, I think, you guys did a really good job. That was not one of your better days from my standpoint. Secondly, I shared this quote with City Council last week, and it applies to the school board as well. The quote is, "Elected representatives owe the people their industry, but more importantly, their judgment, and they betray the people when they sacrifice their judgment for the people's opinions." Now, you know who said that? David, you may know, Edmund Burke. He was in the British Parliament around the time of the American Revolution. He was the only...
You suggesting I'm that old?
No. He was the only member of the British Parliament that voted for American independence, okay? The point is that there are some issues where you want to go out and get, the community's input, but I think there's others where you don't. It's just like voting on, these candidates, My opinion, I just shared my opinion. But I trust your judgment. This is why I voted for you. Because I trust your judgment. Okay? I may not agree always, but I trust your judgment. And I think particularly on this redrawing lines thing, to me, and I've been around this district for a long time, it's so complicated and so controversial and potentially so heated that it's like, this is what I trust you guys to do this job. I trust your judgment to draw the lines, show the community the lines, rationalize the lines, justify the lines, explain the lines, and I think we'll buy it. We'll go with you because we trust you. But you've got to trust your judgment, and going out on everything is, I don't think it's always good. I don't think it's always needed, and I think this is one project where you don't need to.
Thank you. Other public comments? All right. Prior to approving the consent agenda, both Keita and I had a question about Item 9.08, which is the approval of cooperative agreement for Medicaid school district administrative claiming. That's a mouthful. Real quick, has Doug reviewed that agreement?
He has not reviewed this agreement. It's, Bruce, I reached out to Bruce regarding that, and he said that, no, it's a standard agreement that MSBA created through the consortium. There's a lot of other districts that participate, and so he has not particularly reviewed it, but it is.
Do we know if
involving
MSBA legal has reviewed it, or?
I personally don't know. I'm sure Bruce does. I would think if it was a consortium that they were involved with, they'd look at it, but again, I'm just assuming, and that
So
can be
I think
dangerous.
it's something that, I know you would like to know more about it. I would like to know a little bit more about it. Would it be disruptive to implementing this if we were to delay it and
No.
get a bit more information before we vote on it?
No,
Okay.
no, just give me what you want, and I'll make sure, and we could have Bruce come and present on it.
I think, and I don't know that we need a long presentation, just what is it, why are we doing it, and because it's a contract, has a lawyer reviewed the contract? I
Yeah.
don't care which lawyer, but a lawyer.
My question was the funds that we receive, what's done with? I mean,
Our
I'm
plan-
assuming it goes to the program, but like what, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it comes to us, it comes straight to us. So and Pam could talk to it a little bit too, but it's looking at students that are Medicaid eligible and getting funding for supporting them, both supporting them within our school system and then how we support them in accessing outside agencies. We get to determine how we spend the money. Our money's not going to pay for a program, it's just benefiting from something that exists. This is as an FYI, this is one of Bruce's special projects when he was looking for alternative sources of revenue. It's something, again, that a number of other school districts do. And his suggestion, just based on the consortium, was to do it through that. And, yeah.
So just a question then. So is this really then work that's currently being done,
Yeah.
but that we are not getting reimbursed for? And so
Correct.
really what we're doing, we wouldn't change
No.
the work that's being done. What we would do is to basically get hold of funds that were available
Correct.
to support that effort.
Correct. So we certainly have more that we can do, and we're going to be looking to do. We'll present on that, soon. But yes, this isn't to do anything new, different. The only thing that is new, and correct me if I'm wrong, Pam, is that we, our folks need to have some level of record. So what they do is they randomly contact people who are identified. So you identify who are the people who are typically working with these children, so like social workers, counselors, some administrators, and then what they'll do is they'll do a random sample to see like what were you doing on this particular day, working with these kids, and our folks have to complete that particular survey. I asked Bruce, because we don't want people to record every moment of their day. I'm like, so we get in trouble if somebody might not know what they're doing during a particular block of time. He's like, no, there's no repercussions whatsoever. Obviously, we might not get funding if we're not completing the surveys when we're supposed to, but yeah, it's just money that's there for what we're currently doing. We just have to do the survey. You want to add anything to what I've said?
And one of our principals had mentioned that they had done it at a previous district, and it's very, very easy. They get this email and you just confirm what you were doing that day. It's not a lot of work, and it is exactly what you had mentioned. It's just one way for us to capture revenue that we're not receiving right now, and no one has to do any additional work for that. We're already doing the work. Because basically, the district will become an arm of Missouri Health Net, which is Medicaid, and they're going to reimburse us for that.
I wasn't suggesting that it isn't a good thing to do.
Yeah, we could check on
Typically,
that.
consent agenda items don't require discussion and explanation, but
Yeah.
we've already had one, so at this point, I guess if you all want to go ahead and approve it, It makes a difference to me.
Uncomfortable.
I'll go along with the rest of the group, whatever you all want to do.
I'm okay with it. Any further questions I can ask later?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, cool.
In that case, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve for approval of consent items 9.02, 9.03, 9.4, 9.05, 9.06, 9.07, and 9.08.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.